I was noticing the watching numbers have stayed very consistent, around 11 to 12. So there is a steady, regular group of people watching, which we welcome you. I wanted to tell you also.
What are you saying? 11 or 12 watching us right now?
Yeah.
How do you know the number?
Well, you know the number because when you start the playback of the video, it says how many have watched.
Oh,
It gives you the numbers, so there's a count there.
so that's a pretty good group.
That's darn good. Well, welcome. I'm so sorry I've ignored you. Shall we wave at
Everybody at home.
We wish you were here, but and some of you are out of state. I know that.
They're in nice air-conditioned environments.
Oh, there it is again.
There it is, Karen. Excellent. So, hey, there's Alicia. That's a good color on you.
The color of the day.
It's going to become a uniform. Welcome, welcome.
Glad to see all of you here. I guess we're ready.
There you go.
I don't know about Diane.
Alicia, is Diane coming?
I don't think so.
No? She's usually late.
Oh, so then she might be.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, maybe you're kidding.
Well, we'll see. Okay.
Why don't you open us then?
Okay, let's pray. Lord, we know that when we pray and ask for help to discern your scriptures, you're right there with us. And we ask that then we would be open to you and what you might have for us. Help us to understand what's being said or written. Help us to plumb the depths of the truth of it. And also help us to apply it to our lives. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Well, we're glad to see you all here today. And now we enter the time when we're going to look at the Israelites in Egypt. And let's see, we need probably 3 readers, so there are 3 volunteers. Number 1, okay, number 2, Alicia, and number 3, Helen. Thank you for volunteering. It may cost you greatly, but it's worth it. All right, reader number 1. Why don't you go ahead?
Where should I read up to?
Pardon? Oh, you're reading. I'm sorry. That would help you. 1 through 7.
The Israel's oppressed. These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Ishar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them.
Thank you, Judy.
Aaron.
All right, we were instructed.
Karen.
Oh, thank you, Karen. If Judy was here, I would thank her as well, but since she's not. I'm sorry, that's really,
She's at home.
that's going to cost me greatly, I know that.
It will.
So what we learned yesterday on Sunday was when we're approaching the Word, we want to do 3 things: to see what it says, to see what it means, is that correct?
See if it's true.
See if it's true, and then so what? I always like that, so what? Seems a bit irreverent.
It is irreverent, but
Yes.
it comes from the author. Right? You got that? Everybody got that little rhythm? That's a good Bible study. Do I have it right? What is trying to be said? You can do this with anything too, by the way. Talking to people, reading the newspaper, reading a novel, going to a movie, any of it. What is trying to be said? Did you listen carefully? Secondly, is it true? What's being said? What's being communicated? And then 3, so what? Those are big theological questions. Does it make any difference? Does it make any difference in my life? Big deal. That kind of thing. I mentioned that in seminary when I was a student, and it was received coolly.
Well, I
I raised my hand, grab this straight, is this what we're doing? Boom, 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 and it said, well, we wouldn't put it that way, but yes, you are correct.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, so, following that
Got a
example.
question? Where are we?
No, I was wondering, where do I stop at? To read from 8?
Where does she stop?
Oh, no, we're gonna ask, we're gonna do,
Oh.
we're gonna take a small,
Okay.
ask some questions about this
Take a little
and get
look.
your reactions. So, we know what it says. Do we think it's true? Did this actually happen? 70 people, it says, which is, there were 12 brothers, and they get married and have a couple of kids, you get to 70 real quick. So that number seemed within a reasonable number, doesn't it? But did they really go to Egypt, or is that just part of myth? We discussed myth before, about that myth is primarily comes from, I think, from the way I look at it, is when there wasn't really a written account of what happened. So it was passed on, possibly orally, but it was passed on and everybody kind of knew it, but there was a greater truth in that myth, in that particular incident, that people were supposed to know. God wanted them to know the truth. Helen?
My daughter would like to know if you could announce the book and the chapter and the verse, because it's not on the church website.
Ah,
So where are we reading from?
okay.
This is Lee.
Excellent. Yeah, we are in Exodus chapter 1 and chapter 2. And chapter 2 will end for us at verse 10. So Exodus 1, the whole chapter, through
I thought we were
Exodus
still in
3 to 10.
Genesis.
Excuse me?
I thought we were still in Genesis.
Yeah, we finished it. We're moving on from Genesis. We're moving on from
Well, we
Genesis.
Did I say Genesis?
But
No,
No,
it's
you
a-
the
you're good.
story of Joseph is
Yeah.
in Genesis.
But we didn't finish, we didn't read all of Genesis, we stopped.
That's
before.
correct. You're gonna get the end of Genesis on Sunday morning.
Oh,
So
We're just trying to get through it.
Be there, or you'll miss it. All right. So did that really happen? You think they really made that trip?
yeah.
Do they have motivation?
Seems so.
Do you feel, for those of you who have been doing this for a little while with us, does it feel different to read something like this as and as contrasted with like Adam and Eve's story? Do those readings feel different to you? 'Cause one is mythological, as Jim was saying. It's not historical, but it's true. And this is historical in nature. In the Old Testament and the New Testament, by the way, when we say it's historically true, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's historically accurate, like we would read a book about Abraham Lincoln. How they understand writing history is different than people of the West, us, how we would write history. Is that clear enough? Because these are little shades of meaning that are important, really important. In the Bible, if you see history or myth, if you want, it's always told with a point in mind. Whereas if you read a biography of Abraham Lincoln, you don't have to make a point. This is just what happened. You see the difference? I mean, you can draw a point out if you want to, but that's not why you're writing history. You're writing history because you want to have an accurate account of what happened. You see the difference? The Bible always has a slant to it. They're telling these stories so we get a meaning from them. Now, in the beginning here, we're just getting started, but right after this, when Alicia starts reading, you can almost feel the thing slanting toward meaning. Like, what are you guys talking about now? What are you trying to tell me? And that's what makes the Bible so different as a book. Slanting. Is that we've been talking about, we want to open up the hood and see how it works, how this works. That's an example of it, okay? I want you guys to be really good readers.
And I think the other thing we have to remember is that number 70 is only male, correct?
Right? And 70 is an interesting number, isn't it? So they're already cooking something up. Again, I'm sorry, Jim. You have to clean my whole
Well, as you know, I carefully prepare for this discussion, as does Tom. And after extensive research, I came up with Harvard Divinity Bulletin. I mean, this is for real. Fall 2018. It's talking about the Exodus from Egypt. This was published in the Harvard Divinity Bulletin. And it says, we must consider, and I'll just read you a portion of it, just to say that people in academia are discussing this as well, trying to ferret out what does it say and is it true. First, we must consider which historical details in the Joseph and Exodus stories, respectively, may be corroborated with events recorded in Egyptian inscriptions and archaeological findings. So they're really going down to the source, information that was left not by the Jews, not by a story carried on, but was done by the Egyptians themselves. The first thing we know is that a great famine, like that mentioned in the Joseph story, did occur around 1200 BCE, give or take 25 years. To anchor the Joseph story in historical fact, we must assume that he was active during this period. When Joseph's brothers arrive in Egypt, Joseph discusses with Pharaoh where they should live. Genesis 47:11 says, and Joseph settled his father and his brothers, and he gave them an estate in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the region of Ramses. Scholars usually repudiate this notion that the Israelites settled in the region of Ramses, since he would not rise to power for many years. So scholars are saying, that second question, is it true? It's not true. However, new evidence shows that the Israelites actually did come to Egypt during the reign of Ramses II due to a great famine around 1225 BCE. Those at the time of Joseph settled in the region of Ramses, however, can be correlated with other information. There's, let's not get into minutiae. The migration of Jacob's group, migrants whose vocation included shepherding, were despised by the Egyptians because the latter deified the ram, the latter being the Egyptians, deified the ram as a holy animal. And of course, the Israelites ate the ram, so that wasn't really very polite if you were an Egyptian. because the rams, to the Egyptians, the rams signified a holy animal symbolizing the Egyptian god Ammon. Thus, it seems logical that the Egyptians would conscript these starving migrants as lowly physical laborers to build the city of Ramses, because they did not. They were like, not just heathens, but they were uneducated. They were people that didn't get the Egyptian hierarchy of gods. Might say that this area they went to, Goshen, is on the other side of the Fertile Crescent. You know, the Fertile Crescent or the Delta? Well, let's call it the Delta. The Delta of the Nile River. And, pardon me?
There's water.
Water. And as you know, with frequent flooding, which happened every year with the Nile, that's why this area was so rich. All the nutrients would flow out of the river and go into the land and settle there. So the Israelites ended up having really the best growing ground in the kingdom. They had a water source, the Nile River, fresh water source, and they had the most fertile soil in the area. So they did okay, and it was all because they were so crude as to not accept Haran as the god Anan. So they lucked out on that one. And that's officially from Harvard, so we know it's true.
So what?
Okay, any other thoughts on that before we move on to Alicia?
Well, I had one question. Does God work through history? Is it true? Does God work through history? This is what they're saying. This is what they're saying. God is going to work through his history. Is it true?
Does God use the things in the past, the history, things that happen on earth, and things to accomplish his goal? Yeah. Something can happen, a great flood, a famine. Are those things working for him? Does he say, aha? Does he cause them, or does he simply, I don't know the answer to that, does he simply see this as an opportunity to achieve his ends? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Would you like to say more, Karen?
I don't know how much more you can elaborate. I mean, all the stories that we've read in the past sort of, move forward into this.
Yeah. Well, there's no question that the Bible says over and over and over that God works in history. But see, I grew up in Whitehall, and we question these things. Is it true? I mean, you can say whatever you want. The Bible can say whatever it wants. It's like I can, and you can. Anybody can have an opinion. But the Bible is very clear all the way through, and here especially, they're laying it out. The next question is it true? Is that true? Does God work in history, in human history? Yes, no? What do you think?
Well, he made some of these things happen.
Hmm?
He made some history happen.
So it says.
So he does work through history.
So it says. Do you believe everything you read? It's a big question. It's a big question, because the next one I'm going to ask is, does God work through yours and mine? Is God involved in our lives? It's a big question. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people would say no.
One of the things that I think Lynn and I would say is, as we look back, as we get older, not that we're really old, well,
Pushing.
I guess we are. As we get older, we gain perspective, don't we, on the past. We look back and say, oh, this happened, but then that happened, and that happened, and that happened. And when you're involved in it, you really don't realize what's happening.
Yeah.
You just react to what's going on and making the best decisions you can. But then you step back and look at maybe there was a purpose. Maybe there was guidance in that. And I think as we look at the story of the Bible, you know, particularly as we've gone through this series, starting in Genesis at the beginning, we see a rolling out of God's plan. And this plan, of course, God is omniscient, omnipotent, and he can lay these out even before the incident has happened. But I think this plan was coming along right from the beginning. When sin came out in the Garden of Eden, whatever sin was, which was not following God's command or disobeying God in some manner, when that happened, this plan had to be in effect. And it would lead, as we know, and we'll see that as we go through the Bible. I don't know if we'll all be alive by the time we get through the Bible, but we hope so.
Alicia will.
See this plan, Alicia will.
Yeah, she'll be alive.
She can carry the torch.
That's right. You carry the torch, Alicia.
All right. Well, we see this unfold, and step by step through the plan. Almost invariably using the most unlikely characters you can imagine. And that's always the fun part. Which means God, maybe, does that mean something to us? Why is that good news for us?
I wanted to add too, there's an old Jewish saying that if you want to move forward in the future, you do so by walking backwards. And I think that's what you were talking about, Jim. We can maybe best see the work of God behind us. And to get direction, you know, you have to figure out whether you like that or not, whether it's true. But when we look behind us with what's happened in our lives, it's easier. It's more discernible to be able to say, yes, God was at work here and here and here and here. Therefore, I can go forward. Does that make kind of more sense?
I go forward with assurance and conviction that I'm on the right path.
Right. I may not know what's next, but what I do know is that God will be with me. So you can proceed. The book of the Gospel of John is all about that. It's a backwards look on the life and teaching of Jesus. And that's exactly what they're doing with spades, in terms of looking back onto his life and saying, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, he taught this, this is what happened to him, therefore, I can face the future.
Okay. Well, Alicia, I guess we're ready to go on to reader number 2. So verse 8 through verse 14.
Okay. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar. Did I say that right? Mortar. And with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly.
Work them ruthlessly. All right. So,
So
again,
the Egyptians felt threatened by
They
the
did.
Israelites.
Why?
Because they could see that they were prospering, and they did not want them to become too prosperous or to, overtake them.
Too many of them.
Pardon me?
Too many.
Too many of them.
They didn't want that.
Can we, are there any examples of that in the world today where people are making such a profound impact on a country that a country reacts against them? A group of people? Think in Europe. What's happening in Germany? It's always Germany. It's sad. that
Yeah,
it's Germany.
scapegoating, is that what you're referring to? I
Yeah.
mean, there's scapegoating
Mhm.
when you get new, well, now it's Latinos for us. Right? It's
For
like
us,
Europe,
it's
but for,
Latinos.
yeah, it used to be Germans, it used to be Dutch, it used to be, whatever, Italians, and it was Irish, whoever was new was scapegoated. In our country, we've had that since day one, right?
Yeah,
It's
seems
normal.
automatic.
It's sad, but it's normal, to scapegoat the new group.
Well, what I was alluding to, and I'm sure you knew it, you just were shy to say it, it's the Muslim influence.
Yeah,
Look in France.
yeah. The Netherlands.
Yeah, the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And in good old, we tolerate anything Scandinavia, they've had some of the most serious restrictions
That's it.
on the, on their worship, but maybe more importantly, on their style of dress, particularly with the women. They don't like the burqas, they don't like the veils.
Yeah.
Now, they say it's about terrorism, and maybe it is, I don't know. But saying this is not a new situation. We're a group of people who are different. Alicia?
So I have a question. So like,
Alicia, could you speak a little louder?
is it? Yes, I can. Is it not in the beginning when like God made everybody? Were we too frivolous? And then He like made us all speak different languages, so that way we would kind of disperse.
Tower of Babel. Yeah.
So
Tower of
is
Babel.
it not a part of our character
Yeah.
to come together and be frivolous naturally? Like not, maybe I'm not using the right word, but like cause chaos when we get together or become too big for our britches. And the universe kind of just knocks us down.
Well, there's real ambivalence. Well, ambivalence is one word for it, but there are two. Well, that's annoying. There's a kind of taffy pull. You know what a taffy pull is? Taffy pull in the Bible, and I think in the world, and I think in Tom Feet, that let's all get along. I want to be with my tribe.
Yeah.
Right? Can you see it through the whole Bible too? This is what makes Jesus so unusual. He doesn't play it. He won't play it. He won't play the taffy pull. He doesn't do it. He loves everyone. Everybody's included, even people that are really different. St. Paul is another one that learned it. And St. Peter too, kind of figured it out. Like we're all together. We are the tribe. All of us are one tribe. But yeah, so we're going to scapegoat, the Egyptians are going to scapegoat the Jews now. And
But
what?
we never seem to have come to grips with that.
Right.
Continually see that,
Yeah.
with the white supremacists.
Yeah, pick your poison. I mean,
Yeah,
you go to Western Michigan, and you see on bumper stickers all over the place. If you're not Dutch, you're not much.
You gotta love that.
I do happen to love that one, but it's wrong. It's wrong to love it. It's wrong. Yeah, and they're all over the place. You see them everywhere. But yeah, do we seriously have a common humanity that transcends our tribal connections? It's a big question.
If any place should have it, it should be right here in America, but we don't seem to be able to get it either.
Right, we talk the talk,
We
but
talk
a
about
melting pot, but we don't do very well
Talk
with
and
it. Right,
talk, but we
Right.
don't
Yeah,
do
we can
it.
see that fault in other countries, but we can't see it
Yeah,
in
right.
our own.
that's right.
And
Yeah,
that's,
My
that's
point
something,
is-
you know, we had, just from our California experience, some of the negative reactions to Hispanics. I mean, once you got to know them, I shouldn't say once you got to know them, is you don't come in contact with them very often. But in California, who's gonna be working on your house or in your yard or something like that? It's gonna be Hispanics, and they're really good people. And I know from teaching in the inner city that was increasingly becoming Hispanic rather than black. The families are very, very tight. They do the right thing. They just want a chance to work and do it. So instead of having these problems at the border, it would seem much more realistic, since we have a shortage of workers in this country, and will continue to, because our birth rate continues to plummet. Because we have that, why don't we make a more realistic immigration program? They're gonna come in anyway, because what they are doing is fighting for survival. So while I'm not a proponent of breaking the law, I am a proponent of pragmatism, which is, here's a group of people who have proven that they're good workers, they'll do the job, and let's find a way to make it good for everybody. And we haven't done that yet. And Congress is really the ones that we can blame on that. It's not Republican or Democrat, it's all of them together. They haven't had, how many years have we been talking about improved immigration? Oh, 20 years maybe?
Easy 21.
And nothing's happening. And it's like, we can pass bills for trillions of dollars, but we can't do a simple thing like looking at our needs and the needs of others and reacting.
Yeah, do you want a person as your neighbor who has walked with their children 2,000 miles through terrible heat and hunger? I do. That's a motivated person. Right, when you think about it, these people are double tough, man. But let's, I just wanted to say too, there's a little, and this is typical of the Bible too, there's a little note that there's a new sheriff in town, a new pharaoh. That's what triggers all this, right? The old pharaohs knew Joseph, knew his family, and there was congenial relationships between the Jewish population and the Egyptian population. Okay, did you see that? Now there's a break because there's a new family, family representing the new pharaoh, and that's the thing that creates the break. They don't know each other. So the new pharaoh and his retinue are paranoid, and so on. And here's another little. I'll lift up the hood just for a second. What is the name of this pharaoh? Does it get named?
No.
That's really significant. The new pharaoh doesn't get a name. And that is about as damning a thing as you can get in the Bible, where he was seen at that time to be the most powerful human being on earth, certainly in that region, and he doesn't even get a name.
But did the other pharaoh have a name?
No, they don't get names. They don't get names. And you know why? Because they don't matter in the story. If you tell your family history to someone, tell your family story to someone, and you don't even bother to name the person, not good. Whereas you might name the people you do name, and there are a lot of names in this passage that we just read. The 12 tribes of Israel, they name them all. It's really significant. If you have a name in the Bible, or you don't have a name in the Bible. Really significant. Doesn't matter who he is, whatever, whoever he is, you know.
That's a little confusing to me though, because to me, they do, even though they don't have a name, they were the ones that worked them ruthlessly.
No
Just
question,
put
no,
them down, put them
yeah,
down.
but it's, the Bible goes, yeah, he's ruthless, and aren't they all, and, you know, a big deal, and he's a tyrant like all the other tyrants, whatever his name is, and they move on. It's really interesting, and they will never name him.
It's kind of their way perhaps of discounting
Really
the
discounting him, that's right.
importance of
Doesn't-
Pharaoh, who
Not
was
important to the
feared
story.
and revered in comparison to God.
Yeah,
You know, it's,
and Moses, you know, Moses is a nobody, but he's a somebody. He's the one we're gonna name. The rest of these guys, well, whatever, you know.
all right, Helen, could we go on to the next readings? And that will be 15 through 22, the end of this page.
The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him, but if it's a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: "Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live."
So, why didn't he want every girl to live if he was killing
Girls
the
don't
guy?
matter in that society.
Pardon me?
Girls don't matter in that society.
And they're weak.
They won't fight wars with them.
That's right, they're weak.
They're submissive and
They also provide a working force.
provide a force.
Yeah, they're people that could be companions, clean the houses, cook the dinners.
And if you killed off all the guys, there's not gonna be any appropriation going on.
No procreation at all.
Well, yeah, depending on what kind of guys you're with. Forgive me for that. Here's another good example of, is the Pharaoh named in this story, in that reading?
No,
Who's named?
the king of Pharaoh, it doesn't even say his name.
Who is named?
The midwives.
Right. It's the the low,
The least significant.
right,
people.
low standing people, they're named because they matter. You know, the Bible's trying to tell us something here, you know. Listen, if you participate in God's work, you matter. And you can be the richest, most powerful person on earth, and if you're not working for God's purposes, you don't matter. It's an outrageous thing to say, right? But the Bible will say it over and over and over.
He found favor with the midwives.
Yeah, and you
No
get
question
named.
about it.
Right? We still know that, we said their names right now after 3,200 years later. We're still saying their names. It's cool.
It is. Well, I need a fourth reader now to read the first 10 verses of chapter 2 on the back side. Who would like to read that? All right?
The birth of Moses. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water."
So we know what the name of Moses means there.
Mm-hmm.
I might add too, it's kind of interesting, if you notice on footnote B, that the word for basket also means ark. So that's kind of a symbolic parallel there, isn't it? Something that saved the nation, saved the people. All right, so what do we think about this section?
So it sounds like the mom gave him up, then his sister found him and returned him back to the mom,
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the mom gave him to the Pharaoh's daughter when he was old enough.
Yep.
that's pretty remarkable, isn't
Yes.
it? The one woman who gave birth to that baby became the woman that nursed it and brought him into his early years. What a miracle that was to be able to, those set of circumstances come together.
Bothers me a little that she got paid to do that.
What's that?
It bothers me a little that she got paid to do that.
Oh, I love the irony. Not only was she nursing him and violating Pharaoh's decree, but she was getting paid to do so. That's good irony. What else can we say about this section?
Well, Moses will be in time transported up into the royal family. Yeah, everybody know that? That's what happens next. He becomes,
Well, he was given to the Pharaoh's daughter, so he's sort of in.
He's already a member of the
It's
royal
gonna be her
family.
son.
he's going to be a
basically.
prince of Egypt. Yeah.
I thought he had a brother. That wasn't really his brother?
Aaron?
Yeah, Aaron's going to come later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this poor kid's going to have a little speech impediment too, by the way. You know that? Moses has a speech impediment. He stutters. Wonder why. A little trauma there. Yeah. This is a fantastic story. Do you have a story that's like it? Where it's just a little bit impossible? There's too many right things going on? You have a story of your own that's kind of like that? This happened and that happened. You wouldn't believe it, but this person came and that person. You have something like that? I have one. Sacagawea, Lewis and Clark expedition. She was in her teens. She was a teenager. Had a baby, infant, and led the Lewis and Clark expedition out west while carrying a baby on her back. There was one tribe that they met that that wanted to kill them all, and the chief, and she had been gone for years and years. The chief happened to be her brother.
Mm.
Happened to be what?
Her brother.
Oh.
Yeah.
Impossible became the possible.
Yeah.
When you think about Moses and what his future role would be, do you think there was importance to him being part of the royal family? What do you think?
What was the question?
Do you think that God saw that Moses was part of the royal family for a reason, that he would be more effective in his role to come, which was to be the mouthpiece of God and for the Israelites to Pharaoh? What advantages would that give him?
So I guess Pharaoh technically was his stepfather, right? No.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. What else?
So, I guess
Yeah, what do you learn when you're a member of a royal family? What can you learn?
whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
He doesn't have the same mentality as the Jews because he's free.
It's free. Privileged.
Yes.
Did he know the customs and the way people were supposed to act in the presence of the Pharaoh?
He's going to learn. He's going to learn.
When he came to see Pharaoh later as an adult, representing the Israelites, he had a lot of knowledge, and it had to give him, I won't say give him confidence, because he didn't seem like a very confident person, particularly when God is laying out what he has to do in terms of leading his people. But it was fortuitous that he grew up in the royal family.
Well, I've got a question. What can you learn if you live in oppression, a life of oppression? What do you learn? What can be learned?
How to deal with power.
How to deal with power? Okay? Yeah.
Appreciation.
Appreciation. Well, say it a little more.
Appreciation.
Of?
The things that you have, the things that you don't have,
Okay.
the simple things.
Pay
Humbling yourself.
attention to
Yeah. Humbling yourself.
humbling yourself.
Finding joy in things.
Say it again.
Finding joy.
Finding joy.
Yeah. You have family values because you don't have materialistic things.
Okay. All right. Character. Anybody else? What do you learn out of a situation of oppression? Because I'm going to ask you another one. What do you learn when you are in a part of privilege? That's Moses is going to have each foot in one of both of them. What else can be learned with oppression? Doesn't have to be positive.
Patience for hard work.
Faith, patience, hard work. Okay. Anybody else?
Bitterness.
Bitterness. You learn bitterness. You learn that life's not fair. You learn that there's no justice, very little justice. I'm just priming the pump here. You learn that life hurts. You learn that death comes too quickly. Sickness is always around. Hunger is always around, right around the corner. These are learnings from an oppressive situation. You learn that you're being dehumanized. You become a thing in the eyes of others. A thing. How am I doing? You have to learn your own inner resources.
Fending for yourself.
Fending for yourself, which can be good and bad, depending, right? If it's all about me, well, that's good and it's bad.
Maintaining a human state of mind.
Maintaining a humanistic mind? Okay, yeah, great.
Sometimes when people are oppressed, they have a mindset of like, I have to do what I have to do.
Okay, all right, good, all right. And then what can be learned in a royal family? How to wield power.
Carefree.
Carefree,
No consequences.
no consequences. You learn that when you say something, somebody's going to do it. You have an inflated sense of self.
You're probably having more fun.
Hopefully, you're having a lot more fun. Because the other doesn't sound like it might be fun. Yeah, I just wanted to lay that out so we see that Moses has a foot in each one of those realities. He will. He will. In time.
So through a very unusual situation, Moses is born an Israelite, ends up in the royal family. And could he have led the children of Israel from that position? Would they have followed him
Good question.
when he was a member of the royal family? Would they trust him? Probably not. Probably not. He was those other people that were beating us each day and making us make bricks without straw. So an interesting thing. Do you recall, and I don't think this is one of your vignettes, is it when Moses kills somebody?
I haven't talked about that yet.
I don't think it's in there.
It's in Lat 50.
Yeah,
I don't
I don't think so. So, do you recall what happens? How did Moses end up with the children of Israel rather than a royal prince?
He killed
What
a
happened
guard.
there?
He killed a guard.
Yeah. Egyptian. Mm. Wasn't he whipping
A Jew.
a Jewish person?
And no one was around,
Right.
and it didn't sit right with Moses.
Yeah. You've been with Diane DeGroat, haven't you? I know what you're doing. And he snapped. He snapped.
I just have a quick question. So in the, like, his upbringing, his mom, they didn't all live with the Pharaoh? Like, he lived in poverty, but he was with his mom, the servant, and she was getting paid to take care of him.
Mhm.
And then he went to live on the Pharaoh. So they
Yeah.
didn't all live on the same,
I don't know what the cutoff was.
but he was living in poverty before he went to
Mhm,
Pharaoh. Okay.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, he was slated for death as a male, right? Yeah. And there's a little animal called a crocodile that lives in the Nile. Idi Amin, love those. So, you go out, you get pushed out into the Nile, you're crocodile bait.
So Moses becomes an outcast after he kills it. Someone witnessed it, and word got back to the court. And what happens to Moses then? Is he welcomed back into the court? Or is he designated a killer, a murderer?
Yeah.
And what does Moses have to do then?
He runs.
He runs.
He's a fugitive.
And where does he run to?
The farmlands, or like the outskirts. He ends up on a farm.
Right.
At a well,
Yes.
right?
Yes. With the daughters and the
Mhm.
flocks.
With the Israelites.
Hmm?
With the Israelites.
No, it's a different family. It's a different tribe.
Oh, it's a different.
Kind
Yeah.
of in between, not
Yeah, it's a little different.
Egyptians really.
Yeah, a little different tribe. Yeah. He saves the girls from the Harley drivers, They're hassling, these tough guys are hassling the girls at the well.
So I guess it was kind of a transition from the court to the Israelites, but he did learn how they lived and he lived with them
Definitely, yeah.
as his lifestyle changed.
Yeah.
And in that sense, then he was able to relate to the Israelites, and when it came time for him to lead them, he would have some understanding of the Israelites' plight, and he would also have some understanding of the inner workings of the royal court. So he was uniquely qualified by the time he got to that position. And, you know, you wouldn't think anyone could transition from this to the court and then from the court out, you know, into poverty or into really how the herders were living. So, an interesting scenario to get us to this point.
Did he know his birth mother
Probably.
all this time when
I
he
would
was
imagine.
growing up and
It's a
everything?
little family secret, yeah. Yeah,
And his brother Aaron, they were,
probably.
you think they were
Yeah.
children together?
He knew he was Jewish because he was circumcised.
Okay.
Yeah, so he knew he was a little different.
Well, when they picked him up, they said it was a Hebrew baby.
Right, they know that right away, yeah. So I'm sure and he certainly has the wherewithal to
So
find
they
out.
had a connection.
Yeah, yeah. You know, this story reminds me of Meghan Markle. Do you know who that is? Meghan Markle?
Names rings a bell.
You know who that is?
Prince,
She married Prince
Prince
what now?
Harry.
Harry.
Oh, Meghan Markle.
She married Prince Harry. And she's kind of walking, in a way, in both worlds. And you know, it offers one a really unique situation, like Jim was saying, but also you're sort of neither fish nor fowl. You don't belong anywhere. You sort of belong everywhere, but you kind of belong nowhere at the same time. Have you ever felt that way before? Yeah, you're sort of you're good with everybody, but you don't fit with anybody. Yeah, that's Meghan Markle, and maybe Moses is feeling that way too. I'm never home, never home.
Good analogy. Are there any other comments on this, today's study before we close it? I guess not, so we can call it a day.
Thanks for coming.
And we did that before the siren went off. But it's gonna be going on short.
No.
Oh, I did? I missed it.
Don't believe me.
About a minute ago. About a minute ago.
Yeah,
About a minute.
very close.